Kia ora and welcome to another Maven time at the Fundraising Nest. We have one of my favourite people this week. We have Laura Golland, who is our newest Maven from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, sure is. Listen, part of it, everyone knows by now, these sessions are not about me finding out about you. We want to hear from you who you are. So, Laura, I haven't deliberately didn't introduce who you are and where you're from because I'd like you to tell us. Tell us, who is Laura Golland?
So I am a blow-in to New Zealand, originally from the UK, just north of London, but sort of lived all over and landed on these sunny or slightly sodden shores about... must be 11 or 12 years ago, really, and then set up home here. So have been sort of fundraising on both UK and New Zealand sort of land for quite a while now, probably about 17 or 18 years. Long time.
That's a serious professional time of being a fundraiser. Absolutely. And currently you are working
for the Maven Institute of Medical Research. Yeah, which is quite a punchy little medical research institute who do some great things with immunology. So all about teaching the body how to heal itself. So essentially going in and finding new ways to kind of harness the power of what the body does already, or teach itself new ways to sort of do things. So interesting things I've learned. Part of the reason why cancer is such a huge issue is that your body's natural immune system is actually blind to it, can't see it, because it's your own cells and it develops out of your own cells. The immune system can't see it. So one of the really interesting things they're doing at the moment is they're doing a clinical trial whereby you reprogram your T cells and you actually say to them, guys, this is a problem. You need to go and kill these things. Not that simple, I paraphrase. But so they're running a trial on that, and they reprogram them and put them back into the patients to provide like a living drug.
Amazing. So you have spanned a whole range of fundraising. I think the first question I've got for you around kind of fundraising. So you've been from the UK to New Zealand. You know, I think from my experience too, particularly in smaller countries, in New Zealand, you know, we tend to think, I think there's a kind of mentality that it's different in New Zealand and we have to adapt to situations. I'm not convinced that's entirely true. People are people all over the world, especially when it comes to generosity. But from your perspective, is there a difference between fundraising in the UK and this side of the world?
I think there are some differences in approach, potentially. Obviously stylized. You know, there are a lot smaller. I think community here is a lot stronger than you would see sometimes, or sort of my experience in the UK. I cut my teeth really. I was a corporate fundraiser in London, so I'd go, you know, traipsing up to kind of Canary Wharf and around there, and you definitely don't have a comparator here. Even Auckland in its entirety really just isn't a comparator for that. So coming over with that experience and then landing into New Zealand, and I came straight into what was primarily a bequest role, so I had to completely change what I was used to doing. But even so, it was like, we can get a bit corporate fundraising going on the side, and really couldn't get any traction here. So in the corporate market, there was a huge difference. But I've seen that change actually a lot over the last sort of 10, 11 years. Actually, the marketplace has changed dramatically. But the principles...
a lot of corporates really leaning into that social responsibility space, aren't they?
Somebody mentioned it to me yesterday on a call, and I was so excited. I can't tell you. It's like, about this now. It's so great. But I think you're right, though. People are people, and the same basics apply. Look after your donors. You know, be enthusiastic and excited about your cause. Make great partnerships. You know, think strategically. It's the same things. It's not, you know, fundraising. There's amazing new things that people do, but the essentials are always the same. You know, love your donors and do great things.
So for fundraisers who are working in that research space, it is a slightly different case in terms of, you know, your case for support, and some might say is a little bit, you know, it could be harder. It's, you know, it's not a real kind of tangible thing. So what's your kind of advice and how what are you seeing for fundraisers who are in the similar space to you in the research space?
Yeah, look, it's hard. I've always traditionally worked in some of those harder to fundraise for areas, so quite often service-led charities as well, that you can't actually raise money for the services as well. So what do you raise for? All the stuff that you need to pay for but you can't do as well. So it's kind of, I'm used to doing that a bit, but I see some of my wonderful team who've come from organizations where it's a cleaner ask, come in and have struggled with like, but what do we need the money for? And it's like, it's a really hard one. The thing that complicates it, especially in research, is that you have the added complexity of a really complicated grant system that the scientists themselves sit there and apply for. And those grants have no kind of regularity about when they start, what they're for, what they cover. A scientist might have a fellowship for 2 years, and then they might have 2 months where they're not funded before they then get onto a fellowship afterwards. And what that fellowship covers might be really different from what the other one covers. So trying to unpick, I'm still doing this. I've been at Maven for like 3 years. I'm still trying to unpick all of those gaps about what is it that we're actually fundraising for. So it's a real challenge. And then trying to scoop that up also with the idea that fundamental research, if you are an organization who's only doing fundamental research, it goes either very, very slowly or very quickly all of a sudden. There's nothing in between. And so trying to find stories and content about why it's so important to keep going is a real challenge. They sort of say at our place it takes up to 4 years to know if an idea is even worth pursuing. Can you imagine? 4 years. And then they might just go, oh yeah, no, actually that's no good. Go and do something new. And that's that's huge. So
but it's I guess it's the possibilities that you need to excite and inspire with,
absolutely.
That this could be a possibility. And I think people who are leaning into that and want that possibilities to come to reality, let's give it a shot. And I think that's the story, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing is it's about hope. Research is all about the hope for a better way. And certainly we find what we're really connecting with our donors with is that you've got to do things a different way. With medical research in particular, we have a lot of support, and we've got a lot of people sharing their stories around the treatments that they've been through. So cancer treatments, and a lot of people who have survived their cancer treatments, but it's surviving cancer. Actually, you may come out the other side and you may still be alive, but actually what people go through can be really brutal to the body, and the current sort of treatments are not necessarily kind. So what immunotherapy is trying to do is trying to come up with a much gentler, kinder, doesn't leave your body quite so destroyed as chemotherapy can do sometimes. So our donors really resonate with that kind of story of hope for a better way, and they want other people not to have to go through what they've been through. And it wasn't until we finally clicked into that, and it took us a while, but once we finally kind of came across someone who wanted to share their story in that space, and then it kind of snowballed from there. We finally started getting more and more people sharing their stories. But up until then, just finding a case study is really hard. How do you put a case study against research? People give to people. So but it's hope. It is hope for a better way. So you just have to dig around in there and really kind of work out within and it will be your donors, because one thing about research is people are giving to you because usually it will affect them. That disease burden will be affecting your donors. So in there somewhere will be the reason why people want to give, and that's what we found. So it's worth really kind of getting in there and talking to your donors and sort of starting that dialogue with them.
I love it. And you describe yourself on our Maven as under your Maven title on our website. I love this part, that you're a fearless leader when it comes to getting investment strategies adopted at board level. Laura, how did you unlock that one?
I leader, or is it like a dog with a bone? Like because like you can't do anything if you don't get investment, and so I just keep asking until I just keep asking.
Yeah.
You know, and if I get knocked back, then I just come back and I just, you know, and you just have to put your cards on the table, because if they want money, you have to put in money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I've been faced with that a few times. No, because of this. And then I go, okay, so the reasons that they've said no, I kind of find a resolution to that bit and then go back to them. And then they're like, okay, you know, so yeah, you're going to listen to what they think and why it's not a good idea, and then go back and present to them what they,
yeah. I think it's the hardest part sometimes as a fundraiser's job is navigating those politics of how you actually get people to listen to the advice of your experts. And I think it's sometimes what we're not recognised for enough within our industry and within our boards, is that we are experts in our fields, and we sometimes have to jump through a lot of hoops. I mean, we should absolutely be able to provide a really good case, an investment case for support up at board level. Absolutely, that's one of our key skills. Sometimes having to do it on repeat is not great, but you know, bit of resilience, and I guess it's a good learning curve. Things I found really useful as well is if people are really just worried about, you know, that you get a huge budget signed up and that's it, you're going to go and spend all of that budget in one go, is putting in little mitigation strategies. So points at which you can go back and review with them. So you have kind of scenario planning, you can have yes, no moments. So, you know, week 1, have we recruited 2 people? Yes, let's carry on going. You know, week 4, yes, no, you know, are we there? And you can actually do flow charts if you want. I've never had to get to this point. I have thought of it repeatedly. But, you know, that scenario planning can really help people, walk people through as well, I think.
So the way we do the donor mapping journey, you know, you can almost do it with
on a journey.
Yeah, absolutely, the journey. And I know as a leader who holds a budget previously too, we don't want to take the risks. You know, we're just as responsible. So, you know, if there's a point along the budget that you're actually, we know when we want to, you know, make the right decision and not just kind of throw caution to the wind.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we're doing our job right, then we'll pull the plug on something that's not performing.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll be the first to go.
Yeah. It comes back to that misunderstanding of the profession that is fundraising. Like, you've done 17 years as a professional, you know, and relating that to any other industry expert that they might pull in that's got 17 years experience, you would be pretty impressed and you would listen to everything that they had to say in any other capacity. But there's still that thing around professional fundraising, and that's why conversations like this, the Fundraising Nest, all the other organizations that are out there, you know, helping to kind of lift up our profession as a whole is what really excites us at the Fundraising Nest, and making that kind of when we're all doing, you know, learning and growing together, that's how we can all lift each other and our professions. So
absolutely.
So tell me, Laura, what excites you about the future of fundraising?
Oh, I think so. I think one of the most interesting things for me whilst doing this role is having brought in somebody who's a real true digital expert. Now, I'm a little bit of a dinosaur, having been in fundraising so long, and sort of needed to really kind of get my head around digital in its entirety and what it is and what it does. And, you know, in that I was still thinking of it as digital, you know, one singular income stream kind of concept, like I say, bit of a dinosaur. And sort of having somebody come in who is a real expert, the lovely Jess in my team, and having someone come in and just show me exactly the power of what it does, and not just in an individual giving context, but actually across everything, absolutely everything, and what that really means and what the power of that really does. And then sort of going through, we've got some really interesting sort of data profiling tools on our data, and going and looking at how behaviour change has really started to take place with sort of major donors, and how they consume their information now, and how that digital stuff has really started to take hold as well. That sort of journey for me over the last couple of years has been just so fascinating, and so I'm really kind of excited to see what the next steps of that giving looks like. So major donors isn't really kind of my area, but it's where I stepped into over the last couple of years. So what does a major donor look like in about 5 to 10 years? You know, what's that profile look like? Because we're still quite with a lot of quite more traditional ones, and we're talking to a few more who are interested in more the modern ways of giving, sort of impact investment, that kind of area. But actually 5, 10, 15 years, what do they look like? Because they're going to be quite different. So I'm quite interested to see, that sort of switch, that real kind of, there's going to be quite a generational shift about how people start to give and what they want to give to. So I'm quite excited, because I think with that it'll be some really good a sort of breath of fresh air about looking at how charities, what they actually need.
I think the power will be in the hands of the person the people who have the money to give. It's not so much about us, saying how amazing we are. It's them finding what it is that they need, and they can do that, like you say, digitally. I think we could probably give away the little secret, because by the time this video comes out next Wednesday, we actually have, sadly, we've had to reschedule one of our speakers at the Nest Fest, which has taken place in just less than 2 weeks, and we're so excited that Jess has stepped in to be one of our speakers. So you will hear and see Jess in both Auckland and Wellington if you're attending the Nest Fest. So I'm super excited to hear what Jess has to share.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. She'll run you through. I think she'll smash it for you. She'll run you through a lot of what she's done, how to de-dinosaur your fundraising.
Awesome. So on the flip side, Laura, what makes you, what are you fearful of? Are you fearful of anything? Yeah, but is there things at the moment that kind of make you fearful?
In fundraising world?
Yeah.
Look, I think we're all very conscious of what's sort of happening economically and what the impact of that will be. For me, current job wise, I really looked at that when I started about 2-3 years ago. We were very heavily indexed in a couple of areas of fundraising, and so a big thing for me was around diversifying what we were doing actually, and really sort of spreading out that sort of income stream. So I'm not too worried at the moment, because we have our fingers over a lot of different areas. So I'm really, really glad that we did do that, because I think you've got to spread your risk a bit at this point. I know a lot of people are concerned about what the election is going to do at the moment, and I think rightly so. Outside of the fundraising, purely fundraising area, like for us as a research organisation, obviously, what is decided up at government level has big impact on science and innovation. There's sort of various different sort of initiatives. We've got issues around buildings that we need to get into a new building. We're sort of bursting at the seams. And we've got a lot of challenges coming up. We've got a giant phase 2 campaign coming down at us, which is going to be big. That terrifies me, but that's fine. And I think really the old one as well for all of us as fundraisers is staff retention. That's always my thing. I've got the most wonderful team. I've really enjoyed building my team over the last 2-3 years. I've been very lucky to sort of been in a position where I've kind of been able to build most of it from the ground up. And so always for me, top of mind is keeping hold of those really fantastic people. Yeah. And
I know you'll agree with me on there. And one of the biggest ways to keep your team is to invest in them. Is to keep them fresh, keep them intrigued, keep them growing their knowledge, and making them feel valued. I think that's one of my kind of biggest motivators with the fundraising nest, was actually we need to start looking after our staff as the way we're taught to look after our donors. If only we did that internally, we would have a much healthier, happier, fruitful sector.
Absolutely. And it's something that we talk around a lot. I'm very lucky with my team. One of the things I have to do is I have to pull them back. They're real hard workers and they're very enthusiastic. So it's a great problem to have. But it also, I'm very mindful at any given moment that, they are working very hard. And I do have to sort of say to them, like, actually, let's just wind it back a bit. We have absolutely smashed our targets the last couple of years. We've seen a huge amount of growth, which is very, very good in considering we're in tough times at the moment, but every
and create
day.
that space, that create space for the learning and the development and the looking after you part. I think that's super
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
And yes, I'm very, very proud of you, Laura. I know you invest in your team greatly, and I think it's to be admired. So tell me, just before we wrap up, who is Laura outside of fundraising? Where can we find Laura on the weekend?
Oh, running around after my children.
Yeah.
Who are just little balls of energy, who never-ending kind of fascinating list of adventures that they like to go on, or walking greyhounds. I have two. There's one of them behind me, just fast asleep as usual. I say walking, they actually mostly just sleep. They don't really do anything, which is why I like them. Yeah, pretty relaxing. I say walking, I mean sitting with greyhounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And tell me, the final question I ask all of our guests is, what advice would you give to your younger self that you wish you knew then that you know now?
I think just have more confidence in yourself always, and embrace your weirdness. I think it's something as women as well that we are quite trained to pack away in our younger years, and it's something that I certainly am encouraging. I have two daughters, and I'm encouraging them to embrace every last bit of their personality,
individualism, their unique points, that all of it, the things that make them. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think in the workplace as well, I certainly do things differently, and I still struggle with trying to people please, and it's not helpful. Actually, sometimes it's a good strategy if you're trying to get something through a board, but you know what? It's really important just to actually stay very true to yourself and embrace what it is that makes you good at your job, which is normally those individual sort of traits and quirks that you have. So I say that to my younger self and my current self, actually.
Me too. I still, despite how this uniqueness might look, I every day still struggle with that idea 100%. Of actually being true to yourself, and not worry, not letting what you have to say get in the way of possibly hurting someone's feelings. That doesn't help anyone.
No, absolutely. But there's always room for self-improvement.
There is. Absolutely.
It's not gin sometimes, but
yes,
either or.
Yes, well, absolutely. Laura, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. We are excited that you have joined our Mavens, and as we unroll the next kind of 6 months of the fundraising nest, we will be looking at more initiatives that we are kicking off with our Mavens. So huge thank you for your time. I can't wait to see you in Wellington in only in 2 weeks. We will be 2 weeks yesterday was the Wellington event, so I will be in Wellington 2 weeks today. Really looking forward to catching up with you, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. Great to talk.
Ka kite.
Thanks.